So welcome everyone to our September 15th meeting of the Whiteaker Community Council Board. We're going to have folks filter in, and so I'll welcome people as they come. Evening, Dan. Nice to see you. Tonight, we're going to have mostly a meeting of the Whiteaker Community Council Board of Directors. All of our meetings, though, are open to the public, and then we're going to be uploading this to YouTube after the meeting finishes tonight or early tomorrow. We've got some exciting things on the agenda tonight, including two committee presentations, one from the Whiteaker Community Art Team Standing Committee, as well as the Transportation Committee that's newly formed. And then we're going to pass it on to one of our at-large board members to review our charter and talk a little bit about some options for the board to approve allocations from the grants that we're receiving through Oregon Health Authority. But first, I wanted to tell folks how they can voice their interest in participating. There's 4 different ways that you can voice your interest in participating. The first is just by raising your physical hand, and that's going to be a signal to me, like Gail's doing right there, that you have an interest in speaking. Another way that you can voice your interest in participating is by raising your virtual hand, or raising your virtual cat's hand. And I can't believe that every single time that we do the virtual hand raise, Gail is able to do the physical cat hand raise. So it's very impressive. Her vice chairship is in ascendancy. Yeah, and that's gonna be another signal to me that you have an interest in participating. The third way, and it doesn't look like we have anyone on a phone, but just in case someone's watching this later on, if you are calling on a phone, I'm gonna unmute you. So you're going to be unmuted for the entire time that you're speaking, because if you mute and unmute yourself, it's very difficult for you to unmute yourself if you're on a phone. And so the fourth way that you can voice your interest in participating is by doing so in the Zoom chat. And I'm going to pick on Gail again. In this hypothetical situation, Gail signaled her interest by saying, "I'd like to speak." And then I put that Gail's in the queue, but lo and behold, Gail was slow on the draw. She, of course, was slower than Dan, and so Dan is first in the queue, and then Gail. And with that, those are the 4 ways you can voice your interest in participating. I'll keep track in the Zoom chat of who's in the queue. And Gail, would you mind reminding folks how to be able to change their audio settings if they want to be able to contribute, so we can make sure that we hear them?
Of course, thank you, Ian. For those of you who are on computers or laptops, up in the corner over here, there should be a button that says original sound off. If you push it, it will change and it will say original sound on. If you do that, it helps to direct the microphone, so that if you're like me and you have to listen to the radio while you're on this meeting, it will make it easier for other folks to understand your voice. Also, I'd just like to once again remind everyone, we all seem to be doing pretty well on this over time, but you're in charge of your own mute button. So if you could be so kind as to, when you're not speaking and you're able to mute yourself, go ahead and do that, just in case of background noise, just so that it won't be distracting to other folks. And I think that's pretty much it. So thank you all for being here. Look forward to a really productive meeting tonight.
Thanks so much, Gail. And then with that, I'll move on to public comment. So this is time where we open it up to comments from members of the public, and then we'll open it up to board member updates as well. And it looks like, Stephen, we've got you in the queue, and I'll put Delinea into the board member update section first. Stephen?
Yeah, just a quick update on COVID. I don't think I'm going to post anything in the group page this week, because there's really not a lot of change. In 5 of the 7 zip codes in Springfield, Eugene, there was a slight increase in the numbers over the previous week. And in the other 2 zip codes, there was a slight decrease. So it's really, the statistically, it's unchanged. The main difference between this week and last week, or last week and the week before, is for the first time in several weeks, the number of new people getting vaccinated in our zip code dropped below 400. There were about 360 something last week. So it is, the rate of vaccination is slowing down, and we may be getting closer to the end of the people who are persuadable. So the other thing about COVID is I will be unable to update the statistics from early October till early November. So if I can find somebody else to do that, then I will show them how to update the statistics. I'll be happy to do that. I'll keep doing it till the beginning of October, but just if you put the word out, if somebody else would be willing to update the statistics once a week, I will show them how to do that. That's it for me.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Probably about 20 minutes a week is required.
Great. Yeah,
No, no requirement to analyze, just to catch the numbers, because the numbers only give cumulative numbers. So by capturing the numbers, you can subtract the previous week to find out what happened in a particular week. And if you don't get them, then you've lost them.
I feel like you're the BBC world correspondent of the Whiteaker. Like people could do the data number crunching, but you're the trusted voice.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So with that, I'll pass it on to Delinia, and then Thea, you're on deck. Delinia?
I just found out yesterday, and I'm not sure of anything, but CAT, which is Jan, the bicycle place, they just gave his building to another nonprofit. So it's a serious situation. I talked to his apprentice, Leo, and Leo is trying to work out a deal because that nonprofit is the old, the blue bikes, and they want to see if they can work something out with them to share the space. And since he's a long-standing community and he basically has a very unique program, I just thought the community needs to know.
Yeah, thanks for that, Delinia. So I think you're talking about the Center for Active Transportation. Okay, thanks for that. And it seems like Andrew has an update on that, so I've added him in the queue after Thea. Thea?
Andrew can update first.
So I don't know the full story with CAT. I know that they've been closed since COVID started, more or less. So the thing with the building is that whatever Bowerman currently owns that, I guess, is turning that over to Better Eugene Springfield Transportation, who's going to hold that as a space. It's going to be kind of like a nonprofit kind of like cycling community hub. And they do, I mean, I don't know specifically about any tenants, like if Leo can stay on, but they are going to house the bike share folks there, Cascadia Mobility, and they intend to have like a community, like open workshop for people to work on their bikes. And I think there's extra space, and they intend to renovate it. And my understanding, and I got this from folks at the city because I'm on the Active Transportation Committee, is that Best intends to lease that out to other nonprofit type bike folks. So I think that potential is there, but again, I don't know the specifics about Jan or Leo and how their interactions going with all of that.
I think at the moment they are kind of stuck in a not sure who to talk to kind of way. And Jan is definitely, sentimental about it. But Leo, he was an apprentice of his back in '94 who came to help him with this. So yeah, if there's any information as far as like a contact that I can, pass on to them, that would be awesome.
Yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, it seems.
Reach out to Claire, our Claire Roth, because she told me about that.
Yeah, and she's unfortunately unable to make it to tonight's meeting, but yeah, she is a member of Best, and so yeah, I think. Look, Andrew dropped in there. The director of Best is Rob Zako, and so yep, I think that between reaching out to Claire and reaching out to Rob, those two might be the best way. And Delinia, I bet if you reached out to Claire and said, and kind of did a sentence or two and said, should we reach out to Rob or could you facilitate an introduction? I think that Claire might be a way to help you navigate Best and who to be able to get an introduction through. Thanks for that update, Delinia, and some of that clarification, Andrew. Thea?
So some updates. I was supposed to ride with the chief on Friday. He is sick, so he has postponed that ride. I have reached out to the Union Pacific again, as the group that's living on Ninkasi is growing, and it looks like they're trafficking drugs. I'm not up there watching it, but we'll see. And also young women. And I've noticed that on our street, we have more young women and more drug issues happening right now. Also, I shared with the health committee group, Bruns Red Apple is having a really hard time with theft. They are having shoplifting over the top right now, and they had another employee get hurt by a shoplifter the other day. And their stance is, don't step in and get hurt. You know, let them steal it. We'll call the police. And they're at their wits' end. They don't know what to do. They've hired as many extra employees just to watch for shoplifting. And it's kind of sad because if you walked in and said you were hungry, they would provide you with a meal. If you said I needed something, they would provide you. So that makes me sad that our local market is having some major issues. I have reached out to Claire Surratt because they're not sure what they want to do. You know, 6 months ago, they talked about closing their doors. They're back in that place again where they're trying to figure out what they want to do as a family. And this has been a family-run business for over 50 years. So it scares me. And I'm waiting to hear from Sean for the railroad. So that's kind of it on parks right now. And I am working on a map that has, and I'm almost done with it, that I'm getting lots of calls from neighbors of what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And these are not our unhoused that want help. These are our unhoused that are creating problems for other unhoused and for housed individuals. So I'm exhausted. That's all I can say. This has been the most exhausting summer I've ever had, ever. So that's it. Sorry, I don't have any good news, guys.
Oh, well, thanks for updating us, Thea and Anand. I know that you're eating right now and I didn't want to put you on the spot, but you're giving me a thumbs up. So I think Anand has a follow-up.
I'm good. So Thea, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I heard what you said at the last meeting, and I'm wondering, do you think it might be helpful if the folks over at Bruns knew that we're interested in seeing if there's anything that we could do to help them to start with? And
I've already told them that.
okay. And the other thing I was thinking was, we had this discussion that mental health issues are becoming much more prevalent now and have been ever since the beginning of the pandemic. And if anything, have gotten worse because everybody thought it was getting better and then all of a sudden it just got worse. And that's just added to the trauma. And we do have a service that is mobile mental health services, and that's Cahoots. And I'm wondering whether or not it might be useful to have the WCC's representative over at the NLC lead a discussion about having the city provide more services either through Cahoots or some other mobile mental health services that can deal with the crisis, whether it's Cahoots or anybody. But it seems like there's a great need for that right now, and probably will be for a while. And I'm wondering if the NLC, if they support that, could go to the city as a whole and say, look, this is a pandemic, not just physically, but also mental health involvement, and we really need to treat it like that. I'm just wondering if that sounds like something that might be useful, and if anybody else has any other ideas in that area.
So here's the other issue I'm hearing, and it's why I asked last week in the general meeting who the manager of Cahoots was, is that people are calling Cahoots. And of course, you know, if someone refuses services, they usually give them a bottle of water and leave. But one of the things that's happening is that Cahoots is actually, you know, when someone comes out to say, thanks for coming out or whatever, the people that are coming out are actually nasty to the person who's calling it in. And so they've quit calling Cahoots. And I've experienced that myself before. And they're nasty. They've been really nasty to me. I'm like, thanks for coming. Sorry, I had to call you. And they're like, Well, they don't want any help. I don't know why you called. They're also stressed. So, and I've heard that from about a dozen people of late, which kind of scares me because they're supposed to be who's reaching out. And I know they're shorthanded and I know they're only running their one truck because they don't have enough people to run both of them. So we're all stressed. I hope the
Yeah.
rain cleans us out.
Well, as I said, cahoots or other possible mobile crisis things. And if they can't handle it, maybe there's something else in the community that can, or something else that needs to be developed in the community. But it's a crisis. We need to
Yeah.
find some resources to deal with it. I don't really just want to throw up my hands and go, too bad.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And you know, a long time ago, we talked about the red hats that they had downtown. What if we had a mental health instead of red hats, mental
Oh.
health
Cool.
people that wandered around? I meant to bring that up earlier, Ian, of, you know, instead of red hats that look for security, it's more of a mental health team that roams the streets of Whiteaker.
Cool.
But I don't know if we have enough people out there because everybody's stretched so thin.
Yeah, there was an update from the Community Safety Initiative via City Council earlier this week. And in October, Christy Hammett, the Assistant City Manager, is bringing a couple of new potential expenditures back. And I would say now is the time to, in a pointed way, ask Councilmember Syret as well as some city staff for additional resources here in the Whiteaker. Councilmember Syret and I are meeting later on this month, and so I'll pitch the idea of the red hat more crisis intervention. Yeah, no association between that and the red hats for so many reasons now. So I think the concept of having mental health or kind of crisis intervention and response and de-escalation folks is a good one, but maybe the branding is a bad one. So yeah, that's good information to have, Gail. Thanks for sharing that in the chat. We've got a few more minutes left. Is there any other board member that wants to share a quick update? I just wanted to share a couple of things. Some good news. OHA reached out and they want to use some of the videos that we've produced and upload them to their YouTube playlist. And so they're going to pay us $4,000 for use. So not ownership, but just use of the videos. And so that actually won't be grant funding. That'll just go into our general fund. So it's great to have funding that, you know, Delinia can tell you, great to have funding that's not tied to any grants. So that can be kind of put into our piggy bank, our savings, and we can use it for a rainy day. If we want to have little crowns for our cats. I don't think we could actually do that. I'm pretty sure that that's a conflict of interest. But yeah, I think it's great that we can have some money tucked away. So I'll let everyone know when I send that off and when it's uploaded too, because it'll be a great thing for us to be able to showcase, hey, look, one's going to be in Spanish. It's going to be Nelson talking in Spanish to the community for the Protected Together campaign. And then one's going to be in English from a comment about alluvium. Thanks, Dan. And then one's going to be in English with another community member who has a disability. Dan, did you want to jump on in? You have a comment?
Yeah, sure I do. Hi, everybody. Sorry I missed last week. My landmate is on the board, loose board at Alluvium, and there's been some talk about them needing badly to generate some money, and I don't know what our agreement is with them, WCC versus, via the wellness clinics and the vaccine clinics and et cetera, et cetera. But if we can find some dough for them, then that would be tremendously good. Eli is not the kind of person that's ever going to ask for anything from anyone. And in fact, it's going to possibly tank that place, which I think is a great resource for everyone. So if there is any money out there that we can throw at him after some negotiation, then I think that would be a great thing, because I would really hate to see that place go away.
So Jen's got her hand up, and I wanted to go to Jen, but this is a check for $8,000 for Alluvium that the board already voted and approved. So Eli signed a contract. We just needed to update the contract with some feedback that we got from Claire and from Margaret and from Doriandra about making sure that the clinics are up to snuff. And so definitely thanks for that feedback, Dan. And we're ready to go. And we had direction from Teresa and other board members saying that we ought to support Alluvium because they've been there for us and they're there for the community in a big way. So Jen, I see that you had your hand up, and then I've got just a couple of quick updates left.
Yes, Dan, are you able to say what seems to be draining or, the problem with finances for the Alluvium?
I can speak to a few of them. I wish that my landmate it's Tim Lewis, he is on the board there. I wish he could speak. I actually asked him to join a meeting tonight or soon. But Eli is not, he needs a manager. He needs a venue manager badly that is going to put their foot down for him because he's not really very willing to do it. Every time I've spoken to him, which is probably 4 times in the last month, he has just broached the topic of how the place is, he's paying the rent there. And that's a big old place. I don't know what his outlay is, but he has different organizations and events hosted there. And the organizers are typically not offering him any money, and he's not asking for any. So he just needs some help. He needs somebody that is going to put it out there that we need to take a percentage, like any venue manager would. A music venue manager would say, we need 20%, you get 80%. After a certain, X amount of dollars have been made or heads in the building, we'll get more and we'll split that too. So whatever, he just needs somebody to advocate for him. And I think that we have probably got our money's worth as the WCC and as the community, the Whiteaker at large, using his space. And I know that other organizations would. So I'm sad that he's not here tonight, but next time we see him, we should pick his brains a little bit about what else we can do to support him more directly, rather than just with events with some actual funds.
Thanks again for that, Dan. And yeah, I'm thrilled that we're going to get, the funds have been already allocated, approved by the board. Delaney has cut the check. So we're ready to put it in in Eli's hands as soon as he updates that contract with the language that he wants in there. Delaney?
Has, by any chance, Dan, do you know if he's talked to the other organizations about also helping chipping in since they're using the space, or doing a fundraiser for him, something along those lines to keep, because us as a board, we decided to give him money, but this is something that should be presented to those other organizations that are also using the space.
Well, I remember a month ago or so, maybe more, I can't recall now, but I had suggested, and others have also mentioned, that we find a way to use that space as the WCC for hosting events, hosting these meetings once we get post Zoom. Of course, we still have the WCC building at the Whiteaker School. Other ways that we can get involved to help support him. I actually don't know, Gail, or I'm sorry, Delania, if anyone else has decided that they could or would chip in. I know that he's hosted events there where money was raised at the door and none of the money went to him. So Alluvium. It seems a little screwy, and I think he really just needs an advocate there.
Yeah, and I appreciate, Dan, how you're advocating for him right now. And I think we all can be advocates for Alluvium, and Eli's doing really important work for the community. So yeah, we've advocated for him as a board. We've passed the the motion to support him for the $8,000, and that would be from March, right? So we were paying him retroactively for the use of the space all the way through December, right? And so, yeah, it's disheartening. I'm gonna meet with Eli on Sunday, and then I'll reach out to Jen at the Burrito Brigade, because I think it's fair that, you know, everyone support Eli, because Eli's supporting everyone, and Alluvium rather is supporting everyone. So yeah, that's great, and super disappointing to hear, because, you know, we're a super small nonprofit organization compared to Oregon Country Fair, which brings in $2.5 million every year. Like, come on, man. Geesh. I would hope that you would contribute a little bit. So that's kind of a bummer to hear. I just wanted to give folks a heads up that I'm in grad school mode now, so it may take me a while to respond to emails, a couple of days or so. I'm in orientation this week and next, and then in the thick of things at the end of the month through December. I also wanted to do like a Lassie come home thing for everyone. If you have Whiteaker Community Council equipment, it's time to bring it to Alluvium. We're leasing the space. It's part of our lease agreement. Bring it, and those could be records too, Dan. You know, the private records. It's time to, you know, I'm calling you home. You know, it's like you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Bring all your records. Bring all of the equipment. Delaney, I see your hand up too. And then Dan, I see your hand up as well. Dan, I think you had your hand up first.
No, I might as well go ahead then, as it has to do with that. Would that mean that we would be not using the WCC building at the Whiteaker School, or would it be more convenient to have everything in one place, for instance, at Alluvium? Is that a resource, Alluvium that is, and the rooms there that we are leasing, be better for everyone to be able to pop in and out, since Delaney and I are the only ones that have the magnetic key to get into the Whiteaker School building right now? Angie, you have one too? No, just raising your hand, sorry.
I can probably speak to that though, Dan.
Yeah.
You ready for me now?
I
So as of right now, we have a key to the room, but there might be some coordination with Eli to get into the actual building, because it is the workspace. So that is a discussion. Ian, are you talking with Eli about those kinds of things on Sunday?
Yeah, and we're really close to executing a new contract with him. He had some concerns, we had some concerns based on the clinic language, and we're gonna get to where we need to be. Eli asked like, hey, can we still use the storage space? And I told him, you know, in the contract, it's exclusive use of the space, right? Because we have all this stuff. And so what I think will happen first is, why don't we bring everything into the room? And if there's any space left over, then, you know, Eli could, you know, place things in there, and he's committed to making sure the space is locked too. But Delaney, I know that you have a comment as well. So I wanted to touch on that first.
I do. Katie made a good point, and all of our physical address is the Head Start. Even if we keep it for storage, it's still a little bit more secured. We only have Eli's space until the end of December. So as far as like, you know, of course, everything that we need for the clinics and things like that should go there, but we do need to really maybe discuss moving it completely. And that's just kind of like, you know, you're talking about PO boxes, everything, even our 5013, it affects a lot just to take up and move.
Yeah, that's a good point. Dan?
Yeah, so since we already, whatever arrangement we have with the Whiteaker School, it's not a huge space, but it is there. There's not giant flexibility as far as the hours that we can use it, is according to what I understand, but I'm allowed to go in there, myself and Delinea right now, with that card key from 4 to 8 p.m. weekdays, which is not the most convenient hours in the world. But since we have that place, maybe we are spending our money at Alluvium. I mean, you know, great to support them. I'm not trying to backtrack on what I just said, but maybe we should think about using that Whiteaker Communities, you know, the WCC building at the school more. It gets more use out of it because it's large and it's only used by the janitors. Really, the staff at the school uses the bathroom there, as far as I can see. So that's just an idea.
And then Angie has her hand up. We'll move on to the next piece of our agenda right after that. Angie?
So is there, well, I guess part of the discussion should be, is there an option to expand the hours we can access that space? Because 4 to 8 on a weekday is never a needed thing for me, as far as like hand sanitizer and all the things I use for storage. And the other is having more than 2 key cards available. And that would be a question Eli or Ian for Eli is, can we make additional copies of the other key so we could have multiple copies within members of the council?
Yeah, and I'll explore that with Eli, and I agree with Dan that we shouldn't leave entirely the Whiteaker School, partially for the reasons that were mentioned by Delinia, and partially because we helped build that community center with community development block grant funding in the 1970s, which I don't know the whole situation of how it was sold to 4J, but yeah, we should, we should never leave that place. We weren't the ones grandfathered in. We were the ones who literally built it with our hands. Our neighbors did anyway. Delinia?
Yeah, just like I said, we just, as far as like the space, that's ours and there's no rent attached to it. But that's not where I was going. I was going to go with something Angie said. You said something and it totally threw me off. Sorry.
Oh, well, sorry about that. Well, the last thing that I wanted to say is that there's an opening for a Whiteaker Community Council representative on the Neighborhood Leaders Council. It's called the NLC. I don't know why I put a little B in there, but it's in the chat if you want to learn more about it. It's a commitment of 2 hours a month, board matters at the school and community outreach at Illuvium. I like that. Yeah, I kind of like the split there that you're proposing, Dan. So if you're interested in becoming the NLC representative, you could head to the September meeting and just kind of check it out, be a fly on the wall. It's an interesting group of folks. It really kind of gives you a sense of how different other neighborhood associations are from the Whiteaker Community Council. And I would encourage folks to check it out. It's a 2-hour commitment, like I said, and it's on the 4th Tuesday of the month. So we're a little bit over time. We went about 10 minutes over, but I think we're having a pretty productive conversation. What I wanted to go through next is give time for motions, discussion, and a potential vote for Oregon Health Authority grant budget allocations. And tonight I wanted to talk through funding for advertising. So advertising for the wellness clinics, vaccine confidence, business support, but also infection and transmission prevention, clinic supplies, and then contractors. And I'm going to pass it on to specific folks. I'm going to pass it on to specific folks like Angie, who's been leading the contracts, and then to Gail, who's been leading the work with the attorney when we get there, just because they can share more than I can. So I always go back to Tom Cruise because the 90s never died. We just moved on. I want to start here. And this is a little graph, and I would love some just like very direct feedback after this. If graphs like this are helpful, I can do more of them or less of them. This is the grant funds that we've already spent. So not the money that we've allocated tonight. We're asking for more allocation, right? Like we allocated funds to pay that $8,000 in rent to Illuvium through December. This is the money that we spent so far. So about $70,000 we've spent for contractors, about $40,000 we've spent for clinic supplies, and about $35,000 we spent on advertising. So the advertising, this was billboards and bus ads, social media ads. Clinic supplies have been things like hand sanitizer and the water bottles that have the masks in them that we passed out in the community. And then the contractors are the folks that we've hired to do our social media management, our graphic design, folks like Doriandra, Drea, the accountant. So just to give you a sense of what that means, and this little asterisk up here at the top is that 25%, a quarter of everything that we spent has been at Whiteaker businesses. And the direction from the board up to this point is make that as high as possible. And it's harder to do when you have more money for things like advertising, which you'll see in a second, because unfortunately, like Eugene Weekly and KLCC and the Register Guard aren't located in the Whiteaker, which is why this is what's up for the board tonight, is that we have potential allocations that would go to different things, and only about 15% would go to Whiteaker businesses because the balance is different. The colors here are the same, right? So advertising, clinic supplies, and contractors, but the balance is different. So tonight, it's a pretty big number. About 120,000 we're putting forward to go to advertising, about $90,000 to go to contractors, and clinic supplies looks tiny, right? Clinic supplies only $20,000, but that's because we spent so much money up front on clinic supplies so that we could launch the clinics, and now it's kind of just a little bit of more money to be able to do different stuff. So I know it's kind of a lot of information out of the gate, but I just wanted to say that, you know, those are our three buckets: advertising, contractors, and clinic supplies. And tonight I wanted to go kind of a little bit deeper into each of those things and why we're bringing this to the board. And so I should say that we've been having grant meetings on Wednesdays from 6 to 7, and we've had great feedback from board members. Jen and I talked for an hour one time when it was just she and I about what to prioritize, what's urgent, and what can we wait until October or November. Just so y'all remember, we run out of 2 grants in December, so we kind of have to move pretty aggressively to spend the money by then, or else we have to give it back. And we certainly don't want to do that. And so just to give you all a heads up, we have 6 more clinics until December. The 2 of the dates might change around a little bit. The November 26th date is the day after Thanksgiving, and December 31st is New Year's Eve. So I'm not sure if anyone's going to want to get vaccinated on New Year's Eve or the day after Thanksgiving, but Doriandra will help us kind of navigate that. And so for tonight, we have about $237,000 in front of the board for approval, and that includes $126,000 in advertising, about $91,000 in contractors, and about $20,000 in clinic supplies. And so I know it's a lot of information going up front, but I wanted to launch right into advertising. But if anyone has any questions, what I would do is put it in the chat, because I can't see everyone's hands just yet, but we can definitely slow down and get questions from folks if y'all have any while we're going through this, and we can stay on a slide. So for total advertising, and we've got someone in the chat already. In a normal year, the Friday before Halloween wouldn't be a great choice for a clinic, but maybe we can lean into it with costumes and like, Gail, that's why, yeah, I'd be in a foxhole with you. That's exactly what we're thinking. And it's going to be a blast, and it's going to be fun, and we're going to make it fun. Total advertising. So billboards, we spent a modest amount on billboards. Now what we're proposing to the board is that we have billboards all over the Eugene Springfield metro area. Yeah, tell some people to wear a mask at the clinic. I'm definitely with you, Andrew. And then Eugene Weekly ads. Again, we're saying that we should have a lot of advertising, not just with billboards, but with Eugene Weekly ads. And then Register Guard. Register Guard ads, that's about at 15,000. And Register Guard, you can actually target specific areas of town in people's subscriptions and in the things that you can open up and get a newspaper. Radio ads, this came from Jen. We have a set of bids negotiated through KLCC. Mailers, Angie has a quote for mailers for what we'd send out to the entirety of the neighborhood. And we would do that in October, November, and December. So that would be $2,000 a piece. And then social media ads, that would be $6,000 as well. And this is all for the clinics for the next couple of months to be able to promote the clinics, but also promote our tremendous campaigns. And for y'all who haven't seen them yet, we have 3 campaigns that are ready to go. Our infection and transmission prevention campaign, one for all for one. So we have that all designed. We just need to push this out into the community. We've got Protected Together, which is a vaccine confidence campaign of members in the community who've been vaccinated and why they're confident. And then the last one is Bring Us Back, right? Bring us back to our businesses, bring us back to 80s Night at Blair Alley. And that one is more about helping out the business community as well. So we're ready to push that one out too. So advertising, can we use a local business saying they believe in the vaccine? Maybe like Red Apple, totally spot on, Delinia. We have some business owners saying just that. And then I don't think we have a spot on KRVM yet, and they're a super local music radio station, the oldest FM station in the West. community public radio, great. Yeah, I would say that instead of spending the entirety at KLCC, we could split it with KRVM and KLCC. And then moving on to contractors. So most of the money would go to advertising, some of it would go to contractors. Program coordinator, I hope that I'm not going to make Doriandra blush, but she's done a great job. The direction from the board was to have a conditional contract with Doriandra for 2 months, and her contract's not over yet, but we designed it so as a board we could come back to her, and I would just say kind of resoundingly that I would enthusiastically endorse her renewal of her contract to go not for another 2 months, but rather go until June. So this would be the entirety of our fiscal year for FY22. She's really helped us enhance our existing relationships, build new ones, build a tremendous volunteer base. She's going into our work with art that you'll hear in a minute with gusto. And yeah, I can't endorse and really praise her work enough. She's rolled with the punches in some really tough situations, given that we had to completely pivot from our co-location of services model that was so successful to just having vaccines and testing. And then she's helped us lead pivoting again to using Whitebird instead of Lane County Public Health, so we can go back to the model that was so successful and got so much of our community vaccinated, so that we're going back to co-location of services. So that's why we have her as the top thing on total contractors. For graphic designer and social media manager, I will pass it over to Angie. And then Angie, I'll just stop sharing. I don't know if there's anything that you want to share, and I'll make it so that you can share simultaneously in case you want to talk a little bit about the graphic designer and social media manager pieces.
Yeah, so the graphic designer we have been using since the beginning, our very first All for One, One for All campaign. It's the person who's done our work on the buses, our billboards. She's done a lot of our print ads, and she did the Eugene Weekly ads, and it's Emma, as many of you know. I would like to, let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Whoops. Sorry, I can't pull it up fast enough.
I didn't know that your cat was so interested in contractors, Doriandra.
Just say, take your time, Angie. We're all gazing at Doriandra's beautiful kitty.
Yeah.
Well, my filing system has gone awry here. Here we go. Nope. All right, I'm going to look through my inbox, which is not fun.
Totally. And then I guess while Angie's pulling that up, I'd go back to this. And then maybe if you're comfortable with it, Gail, I can go into this next slide and talk about attorney fees. And you can kind of walk us through the work that you've done with the Center for Nonprofit Law.
Yeah, I've been in contact with the Center for Nonprofit Law, which, first of all, how cool is it that we have a Center for Nonprofit Law in Eugene? That's very convenient, because let's be honest, it's kind of a specialized area. So $10,000 for attorney fees looks like a lot, but honestly, we're looking at it covering a number of things and a number of things moving into the future. Our goal here is to allocate a sufficient amount of money that we can cover whatever we need to pay the attorney to make everything right and ready and appropriate without running out of money. So ideally, we won't actually have to spend all $10,000, but it's better to say, let's make sure we have that much set aside. And then if we need to spend it, we spend it. And if we don't need to spend it, we can reallocate it later. But the attorney was really excited. Apparently, they have worked with the Whiteaker Community Council in the past, although not the current board, obviously. And so they're very excited and feel very confident that they can go through each of our different documents here, which are, as Ian has on the shared screen, we have a corporate minutes book. So a book that keeps track of the minutes to make sure we're doing that right. We need them to look through our director's handbook. We have a policy package that needs reviewing. We would like them to help us design trainings for all of us so that we can be better at being board members. We need them to look over our revised charter, which that's going to be a report from our charter committee later this evening. We need them to look over our contracts, and then we just have sort of a general collection there called hourly work, which is supposed to kind of be the basket to catch everything that doesn't fit into the other categories. So I hope I covered all of that clearly. Are there any questions, or Ian, do you want to correct me anywhere?
No, that was totally spot on. And in fact, our former treasurer's ears were burning so badly that I think she just joined the meeting. We're talking about budgeting, allocating grant funds, Katie. So yeah, welcome back to where you've been. Something, Delinea, I think you'll be delighted to hear is that your continuity binder is given new life through the director's handbook, right? And so this is something that the Center for Nonprofit Law has put together. I know that you and Jen have worked together and separately on things for the continuity binder. So this will be great fodder for the continuity binder. And I know that Delinea and I, or excuse me, Gail and I have worked on kind of a training, a board member 101. So we're going to learn from the best in the business here in town and kind of build on what the Center for Nonprofit Law has put together. And how cool, right, that they worked with the WCC 20, 30 years ago. So yeah, it just kind of speaks volumes to how long they've been around and how long that we've been around. And Jen too, I don't know if you want to say anything about the Center for Nonprofit Law, but I think, you know, through our own kind of homeworks, we kind of came to the independent conclusion that they were the best choice for us.
My big thing was that they answered the phone. They were very helpful and they were friendly and they just delivered the information that you needed and then some. That's really important. And they answered the phone. I called 3 times and I did get to meet Megan, got to meet Ella, and I didn't get to meet David, but I got to learn about him. And I really liked the way they carried themselves. And they're very generous. And unfortunately, Judy was retired. She was a tax, I can't remember. She handled taxes. I don't know if we're dealing with that tonight or not for a tax accountant.
We are.
I was very happy. Very happy with
great.
them.
Yeah, kind and caring are not adjectives used to describe attorneys very often. So yeah, I think it goes without saying that, yeah, this is a special group of folks. I wanted to pass it on to Delinea next before going back to Angie to see if she's ready, because I know Delinea has been working with Drea on a tax accountant, someone specifically to handle the books, because it's going to be a particularly cumbersome fiscal year for us to be able to calculate our taxes. So Delinea, I don't know if you have a quick update for the board on the tax accountant research that y'all have been doing.
I did. Drea helped me find a very young and enthusiastic tax accountant who would love to work with her very first nonprofit. She does have or that she'll be, showing them to, but I thought it was a great fit. Her name is Stacy DeVette. And so I will be meeting with her on the 22nd, just to basically show her what we had last year. But I also need to warn her that last year is not the same as this year. So, and just kind of let her peruse our books for right now and answer any questions that we may have. But yeah, I'm kind of excited because, to be perfectly honest, it has been really trying to get a tax accountant. They have not called us back or, gotten in contact with us. So it was a little tough. So when I had somebody who was really enthusiastic, I think that's what kind of made me like her. But I'll have more information on this 22nd. But allocating some funds towards that today would be a really good idea.
Thanks so much, Delinea. And the last thing before we go to Angie, the former social media manager that we had is no longer available to work with us. And so Holly actually assumed some costs out of pocket and has been kind enough to pay for the social media advertising for our clinics out of pocket. And so I have the receipts from them and I'll send those off to you, Delinea. But I'm requesting from the board that we pay the $648.75. So that's why it's that weird little number, right? Because it's just like a bunch of little things put together. But yeah, yeah, I can't, speak highly enough of Holly. She did a great job. She lives here in the neighborhood. She understands our community, and some of her ideas still live and breathe through the Bring Us Back campaign and Protect It Together. So definitely want to compensate her, but unfortunately, she's not available to continue to work with us for the rest of our campaign. I wanted to pass it to you, Angie, if you're ready for it, and then I'll stop sharing. Okay, cool.
Thank you. So we have two positions. Actually, Ian, will you keep that slide up so we can have the large numbers, because I'm going to break them down a little further just to see how we got to that number. Thank you. So we have two different contractor positions, and this would be a continuation both in pay per hour and expectations of what we've been doing for almost a year now. When did we start this? In November? So the first one is graphic designer. Emma has been our graphic designer from the start. The contract that I am sending to her to go over is for photography and processing to get all those great pictures of community members, including, I really like the idea of the business community making it into this campaign. Nelson's made it in, but it'd be nice to expand it even a little more. At brand guide, so all of our branding right now looks really similar, and she is we would ask her to create a brand guide for us moving forward. We're going to see that on the website as well, so this is not just COVID, this is an image for us going forward. So when we print anything or do anything, we have an idea of font, colors, and every other thing that I can't think of at the moment. Billboard ads, she created a number of our billboard ads, almost all of them. Holly Hine did create, I think, one or two, but she created the bulk of our billboard ads. So she would be doing so for 3 campaigns, since our community is stubborn enough to still need all 3. So we've got one for all for one, which is the mask, wash hands, social distance, get tested campaign, Protect It Together, and Bring Us Back. So it'd be 3 campaigns running. She would do the Eugene Weekly ads, the Register Guard ads, sandwich boards, because we're going to need to expand those as well. Our flyers for our wellness clinics. And the total for all that is the total you see up here, with each kind of broken down into, for photography, this is the going rate for photographer, which is about 200 an hour, and that's solidly kind of in the middle. For up to 40 hours for that, 50 an hour for graphic design services, which is running about 164 hours total for that. And, we have some caveats on what to do. I see. Can we please get a project plan from the graphic designer? Delinea, you want to expand on that?
Usually when graphic designers are making a plan for you, they just kind of give you timelines and timestamps of about when things are going to be done. And
I see.
It's down their actual job of, this is going to take this long, it's going to take this much to.
I think we did. So the way we had been doing it is we were giving her deadlines, and she was saying, was meeting those deadlines. But so I see it kind of going more that way, but I like the idea of Doriandra maybe working with her on deadlines. Are you worried about not meeting the deadline, or what's the concern?
No, not at all. Actually, it's more for the contractor to say, here are the expectations that you can have for when something's going to be completed. So this way people are not asking all the time, like, we talked about it this last week. Why isn't it done? Well, because this is going to take 2 weeks, not a week.
Gotcha.
So it actually gives them like more of a timestamps. So this way they understand that, the board members understand what it takes to get to that point.
I like that. So, and I think maybe we just get updates from Doriandra on that stuff is how I'm kind of picturing it. I think that's what we talked about previously.
It might be something you might want to run past ask her though, because she might like that idea instead of getting like, hey, I need this deadline, because only the graphic designer is going to know when, how long it's going to take her to do something. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When I talk to her, we're setting up a time to speak. So I'll just say, hey, what has worked best for you? I know
Yes.
working with us has not always been easy. How can we make it better? That's a good suggestion.
Thank you.
All right. I see Jennifer. Was Jennifer next, Ian? Sorry, I only have 4 people on my screen right now.
She was, and Anand has to wake up early tomorrow. So we should vote maybe in the next 5 minutes, 7 minutes, so that we can have conversation and clarification before he has to take off.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, yes, so then are you saying that you have a nice flow going on with the graphic designer now?
I personally really like what she's done. And I really like the fact that I can also work with her on getting our website designed
Well,
because
there
she
was-
knows us, she knows our products,
There was
and
a
she's
period-
made us look good.
But wasn't there a little period of time where we weren't hearing from them, and has that all that been
The
addressed?
website's a different story. Emma has
Oh.
been she just happens to also work with them as well as us. So for me, that makes sense, but it is very separate.
Okay,
Yeah. She has, to my knowledge, met every deadline and gone above and beyond. She's been really easy to work with, to my
and who
knowledge.
is this? And what is the name?
Emma Jones.
Oh, Emma. No, okay.
Yeah. So I'm proposing that we spend this amount of money for photography, let me pull my thing back up because I'm not going to remember. For photography, that's the other one. Billboards, brand guide, Eugene Weekly ads, register guard ads, sandwich boards, and flyers. Total. So the work would be up to that much money.
And so rather than going piecemeal, I mean, yeah, if we want to do the 2 contractors now as a package and then do the rest of them, we can do that too. I just want to be cognizant of Anand because he has to take off soon. So we had a motion from Angie and a second from Gail. So the motion is to hire Emma Jones as the graphic designer, given the specific buckets of funding that Angie just mentioned. And then the friendly amendment from Delinea is that Angie work with Emma to have specific deadlines tied to each of the deliverables. So yeah, before we vote, I'll just say that I'm going to recuse myself from the vote because Emma and I are dating. We didn't start dating, but fell in love with the pandemic. You know how it is. It's that classic Whiteaker nonprofit romance. So yeah, I'm going to recuse myself from the vote to avoid a potential conflict of interest. But I will take folks' votes in affirmation now. If you want to raise your hand or say aye. So we have 7 aye votes, which means the motion passes. And so we have a quorum tonight because we have 9 members too. So just a heads up. And so Angie, I don't know if you want to do the next one, the social media manager, before we finish up and tie everything in a bow. And Anand, I know that you have to take off pretty soon because you have to wake up early, but yeah, just thanks for staying awake a little bit longer.
Yep. So the next position is to fill Holly Hines' spot as our social media campaign. There it is. Okay. So they're going to use those 4 campaigns as well, but it's going to look a little different. So it's going to be Google ad, Facebook posts, and then Instagram and our website. So they would be on a couple of different platforms, making sure that our imaging is out there, creating images that we as a board and our program coordinator can also continue to share to try to make sure that our messaging is out. We have 2 people that have expressed interest and turned in resumes and samples for the position. So I'm not motioning for a specific person tonight, but I would like to motion for $15,600 in social media advertising to promote our wellness clinics and just our campaigns to try to get information out in addition to our print and radio ads.
We have a second from Gail. And is that a question that you have, Jen? Or are you voting?
Yes, I do. I'm confused. We're going to get rid of Holly's business and go to social media manager? Is that what you're saying?
So Holly was our social media manager and she has resigned. We are looking to
Uh-oh.
fill the position again.
Okay, so, okay, those are just leftover expenses that she paid out of pocket.
Sounds like it.
And we don't know who it's gonna be yet.
No, we have 2 individuals. I will come up with a method of how we're going to kind of choose the person after some discussion.
And then Delania, I see your hand up as well.
Do they happen to live in Whitaker?
One I assume does, one I know does not, but I'll have to get back with you.
One definitely does. Delania?
How long is that going to, like, that contract gonna be for?
So it's broken down into per week. Let me find like a
You know,
really So we're looking at 2 options per month on Google Ads for each campaign, 2 for Facebook. So we're looking at a couple of posts per month. Until that 15,600 runs out. Let me see if I can find the total again. Full disclosure, I'm struggling a little. I'm on some pretty intense migraine medicine. So my apologies. Yeah, so through December 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Angie.
Thanks, Delania.
So we had a motion from Angie and a second from Thea. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand or say nay. All right, and then anyone who's abstaining is who didn't vote in the first or the second. That passed as well. We'll have to go back as a board and decide on who. And Angie, I'll just defer to your judgment when you're ready to bring that to the board, and we can do that via email. And yeah, if whatever you want to do. The vote count was 8 and affirmative and 1 abstaining. Really quick, I'm just going to speed through the rest of them so Anand can be there for the vote. Moving on for the next, that's clinic supplies. We have another 12,000 for water bottles. Our partners have said that these are very helpful for unhoused community members, and 95 masks. Our business community is clamoring for 95 masks, and this is something that we can really do to support them. AED stands for external defibrillator. So we've talked about this and priced this, we just haven't allocated funding for it. Easy Up canopies, these were requested by Doriandra for doing rapid testing outside for persons who are symptomatic. First aid kits, that's something we've talked about but haven't done. Sandwich board inserts, these would be new sandwich board inserts that can go on our sandwich boards. The $180 laboratory expense, I want to get back to in a second and pass it to Anand. And then the hand sanitizer pumps came from Angie and from Margaret, and they asked that we do that. Anand, can you talk just very, very briefly about the laboratory program and why you need those funds?
Right, yeah. So if we want to be doing our own rapid testing, and it kind of looks like we need to be doing that because The folks who were doing it before look like they aren't going to continue that. And rapid testing is incredibly important piece of making sure that we get as many people the resources they need to deal with COVID. We need to get certified to be able to do that. And to be able to get certified, we need to send this $180 to the state agency that will actually do the certification. We've already done the process of getting a number. So we're halfway through. All we really need to do is send them the money and we will be certified, and then we can go on from there.
Thank you so much, Anand. And really appreciate you being the nurse that'll be doing the rapid testing at our clinic. Yeah, it's huge. I know you're shrugging it off like it's nothing, but it's a huge piece to our community. And thanks so much for stepping up like you always have. And we're seeing increases in testing every clinic. So based on everything we heard, I'd like to make a motion to approve the advertising contractor and clinic supplies budget at $205,000 or $205,335.75. So that subtracts the $237,135.75 because we already voted on 2 of the contractor positions separately. So we've got a second from Andrew. And I wanted to open it up for a vote. So all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. And then those opposed, please raise your hand. Or actually, it was a unanimous vote. Sorry, I saw Delaney's hand in the dark. So that was unanimous. And with that, Anand, thanks so much. I'll be posting.
Thanks, everybody. See you guys all later.
Cheers. Have a great one, Anand. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for hanging in there, folks. Really appreciate you staying with the budget pieces. And we've got a really exciting piece coming up next. Susan, I hope you're still with us. I see your screen is blanked out a touch. But next, I wanted to open it up to members of the Whiteaker Community Art Team to talk about their past, present, and future. And so Jen has been fantastic in reminding us that committee presentations is something that we do as part of our charter. And so what better way than doing this than having members of committees come and present on what they're doing. So I'd like to pass it on to Susan, who's actually a former board member of the WCC herself. And we've got other members coming up right now in classic WCAT fashion. They're showing up fashionably late. But Susan, I wanted to pass it on to you. And for some of the projects that you don't know much about, I can fill in the blanks too. Travis, I think, is going to be joining us in just a little bit. And Josh is going to be joining us in just a touch as well.
Oh, well, you're showing projects that I came onto the Whiteaker Community Art Team during COVID. So my time has been maybe a year. I'm not sure about that. It's true, I was on the Whiteaker Council some years ago. I've actually in 2 months, I will have lived in this house in Whiteaker for 30 years. I can't believe it. Yeah. So yes, I'm an artist, and I've been lived in Eugene most of my adult life. And I decided I wanted to do some volunteering in the art world. So I decided to be part of the Whiteaker Community Art Team. And I cannot speak to the images that you have up. So I don't know if you want, if there's anybody else, if you can speak to those, Ian?
Yeah, I totally can. So I wanted to do kind of like a past, present, and future. And yeah, I'll just tag team this around. So the Whiteaker Community Art Team was founded in 2014 by 3 working moms. And so that, I think, is part of one of the most wonderful pieces of the history of the Whiteaker Community Art Team, or WCAT. is that it was created by people who lived in the neighborhood who were artists and involved in art. And one of the first projects was the Illa Rose mural that you see at the bottom. This was actually Isla Rose's first mural. She's since done a lot more murals that you've seen around town, including several murals in the Whiteaker. But I think it's pretty special that this was her first one that was funded through a neighborhood and community matching grant in the Whiteaker. Up above is another Whiteaker-based artist. His name's Brett Pendlebury. And Dan, you've probably seen these portraits in the storage space because they had to be taken off of that fence when the Whiteaker Community Council was no longer leasing it. But they're of famous Whiteaker residents, people like Sam Bond from Sam Bond's Garage and others too, who are famous residents of the Whiteaker neighborhood. We have another Whiteaker Community Art Team member. Shalom, Ellen. Nice to see you. So yeah, it really showcases kind of the initial history of WCAT in the neighborhood, of creating an opportunity for artists to come together and create projects. So I'll bop onto the next one. Susan, I don't know if you know much about the Bridge exhibition. Unfortunately, Josh isn't here tonight, who is one of the artists who contributed to the Bridge exhibition piece.
No, I do not.
So the Bridge exhibition was a collaboration between 3 Whiteaker artists, Valentina Gonzalez, Josh Sands, and Dane Caldall. Dane's the lead artist on another WCAT project that we'll get to in a minute. But basically, it was showing the impacts of gentrification in the Whiteaker. So this is in Wildcraft, and you can see from one side of it, you see kind of natural vegetation that was gathered in the Whiteaker. And then from the other side, you see milled lumber that came from the Whiteaker. So it's a piece that's designed to promote people kind of going through this experience temporally of a place being displaced and of a community changing. So again, pretty cool example of showcasing the impacts of the neighborhood, but also funding Whiteaker-based artists to do work. So I'm gonna stop on this one next. Ellen, I don't know if you're able to touch on a little bit, talk about Whiteaker Tales or talk about the Urban Canvas phone booth, or excuse me, utility box project that we did.
Well, it's urban beautification at its finest, like taking something that you sort of take visually for granted as an eyesore and turning it into an attraction that you can map all of the locations like we do for the last Friday Art Walk and show. It's not just a place for genius talent, but it's also beautifying the area and making it much more pleasant to go for walks, give you sort of like a reason to get out and about. And it's sort of like taming technology and reclaiming the space that has been urbanized and make it be beautiful. And with Whiteaker Tales, I personally am a big fan of oral history, and they were I attended some at Sam Bond's, and they were very welcoming and very explanatory. And it was like an immersion back in the past, the volume 1 of the 1990s. As somebody who sort of like grew up with Icky's Tea House, that was a real blast from the past to go to. And they've been just a tremendous gift. And very timely subjects, as you can see on there.
Thanks so much, Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whoa. So here's some examples of what the Whiteaker Art Walk has looked like in the past. We got a grant from Lane Arts Council through their 2020-21 community grants program. And we actually funded artists to do kind of socially distant visual and performing art pieces along the theme of resilience. So there's one of our member artists, Travis, who works at Slice Pizzeria and Blair Alley. And that's him showing his work in a backyard. Adeline Salenza, who at the time worked at Izakaya Meiji as a server, did a chalk art piece that was in solidarity with the land back movement. And that was at the Whiteaker Community Market. And then there's Dan's house right there. Shakti showing some art of hers during the art walk, an impromptu parade it wasn't, we didn't fund it. It just happened. You know, I think that's one of the best parts of the art walk. And then, yeah, people showing their work during an art walk. So that's kind of what we did during the heartbeat of the pandemic. So Susan, I'm gonna pass this one on to you.
Okay. So this was a project that I think this was the first project that I was involved in that got me really interested in the Whiteaker Community Arts team, because over the time of COVID, I started working in video, and I think it was the first time I'd ever done an art project without knowing any of the people ahead of time, and without meeting. We didn't meet in person. We did all the planning on Zoom. And what we did is we created a window display. There were, let's see, myself and how many of us were there? I think 3.
Miles and Travis.
Yeah, Miles and Travis and myself. And it was a eclectic display of TVs and gathered materials and video that ran 24/7 and was part of a larger window display project through the city of Eugene. And I think we did that in, I want to say February. I don't know. Is that right, Ian? I'm not sure. So I think that participating in that helped me get to know people on the Whiteaker art team and solidified my decision to keep working on projects. Yeah.
Thanks, Susan. I just wanted to kind of touch on the present, kind of where we're at right now. This is August's Whiteaker Art Walk map. We had to cancel August's, unfortunately, because of COVID. The rise in Delta cases, Lane County Public Health advised us to cancel, but we're moving forward enthusiastically with September's Art Walk map. And actually, several of the artists that we had to postpone in August, we're going to do in September. And I actually had the opportunity to meet Sterling, who founded the Whiteaker Art Walk and did it 10 years continuously, mostly by himself. So that guy's a legend in the neighborhood. And yeah, it was just, he was super pumped to see that someone had carried the torch, and he really loved the idea that it wasn't a business, right? But it was rather a nonprofit organization that was carrying it forward. And so I think what's great about the Whiteaker Art Walk is that it's mostly non-traditional gallery spaces. So it's like homes like Ron LaFon's place. That's a hoot to go to. Ron's the man. Businesses, of course, but also places like Alluvium and places like the Hybrid Lounge, which is owned by, and Susan has a comment that's owned by
Amanda.
Go ahead.
I want to say Amanda. I can't think of her last name. Amanda. I have her card someplace. She also has a small business that's related to CBDs.
Yeah,
what?
She's in cannabis, the owner of
Yes.
Sugar Top Buttery.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
she's
you.
the CEO. Anna Kaplan, maybe?
Anna? Is that Anna?
Yeah, Delinia.
Yeah, she's one of the co-owners of Sugar Top Buttery. I think her brother is the other owner.
And this is a gorgeous space that they've created. It's very beautiful inside. And I one of the things I'd like to say about the Whiteaker Art Walk is it's been a great way for me as an artist to connect with people individually and businesses. Like I think it's one of the things that I have noticed when I've gone to a couple of businesses, small businesses lately, is they're very pleased that this is something that they can do for free that is connected to the neighborhood. So it's a great thing to offer to the people that are in our neighborhood, whether they're homeowners or they're nonprofits or they have small businesses here. So it's a great way to highlight them.
Thanks, Susan. And we got a question from Thea. How does an artist get on the art walk? And so Doriandra, I don't know if you want to take that one, because I know that Rupert wants to get on that. But yeah, I don't know if you want to take that one question from Thea, just because you've already kind of connected some artists so far.
Sure. From what I'm learning, it's really such a grassroots thing where folks on the art team seem to reach out to their folks, and then we seem to just start connecting dots. So it's a really great meeting that happens on Monday nights, and people are just connecting with folks they know. So like, and sometimes, it's like this time it'll be great because so many folks are going to have the same art. So all the information gets funneled in and it's shared with Ian, and then the map gets printed. But yeah, it seems like it's very organic.
Yeah, and if you know of any artists that or a business that wants to get involved, just reach out to Doriandra, and we can put them on the map. And there's lots of businesses that host artists as well. Unfortunately, Dane can't be here tonight. Dane's the guy in the Whiteaker Block Party green tank top in the picture there on the left, but he is the kind of curator of Old Nick's. So he's the one who hangs art inside of Old Nick's. So there's venues
wow.
here. And he's the former curator of like Sam Bonds, right? So, and Oakshire, has rotating artists, of course. So there's lots of businesses that kind of act like informal gallery spaces. Kind of wanted to talk about the future a little bit because that's super exciting, and then open it up for questions. We're not super behind anymore, so we have some time for questions. And a lot of the artwork that we're doing is around vaccine confidence and around recovery from COVID. So the Reflections phone booth project is a phone booth, of course, that's almost ready to live in the wild. It's finished, so we're just doing recording of the phone lines in the podcast studio, but it's going to be a red telephone booth that you walk into, and then you see a little box that says telephone, but when you open it up, you don't see a telephone. What you see is your own face, because it's a mirror in there, and it prompts you to call a phone line. And once you call the phone line, it'll give you 3 different options in English and 3 different options in Spanish. And one of them is an opportunity to call your future self. We wanted to create a space for people to reflect and grieve and process what this has been like. But we're also partnering with another nonprofit organization called Word Crafters to help people tell their own stories. So this mobile telephone booth is going to be around different parts of the Whiteaker and prompt people to tell their stories, reflect on their experience. And it's going to be at Oakshire first. So that's the first place it's going to live in the neighborhood. I met with Jeff Althouse, who's the CEO of Oakshire and my neighbor, and he had just one request. He requested that we put a cup holder in it so people could put their beers down. And that's a real story. So that was all that Jeff wanted. Also, you can see another project that's in the works, which is a free wall. And so you can see 3 of the members of WCAT there, Dane, Josh, and Val, taking down the old free wall. And, Dan, you could, Anand, y'all could, or Anand's not here anymore, but Dan, you probably remember when the old free walls were up, right? People did, graffiti and tagged them up. And so now we're building these new free walls that are going to be used to be able to promote vaccine confidence, and people can share their wheat paste or stencils or spray paint on a wall that's enthusiastically endorsed by the city of Eugene. So that's going to be at the corner of North Washington and Cheshire.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, street next to the Skinner City Farm and rest stop that's located there. So there's lots of cool opportunities for folks to work together on it. Last thing before opening up for questions is there's a couple of other really cool projects that we have going on. So Angie, I'd love for you to talk about the project in the upper right, but actually Delinea had this great idea for doing these slow down signs, traffic signs. You posted on Facebook maybe like 8 months ago or something, but I never lost the thread of it. I thought it was such a great idea of what if we had artists design signs to help slow traffic in the neighborhood, but then use them as vaccine incentives. If people came into our clinics and showed us a card that said they got vaccinated, we would give them something that they could post up in their community to help slow down traffic. And so Lane County Public Health said, hey, that's a great idea. And they funded us to be able to do that through our grant with them that we need to spend by December. And then Angie, I'll pass it on to you to kind of explain what your thinking is for those ones in the top right-hand corner.
Sure. So the top right-hand corner was also, I was inspired by Jefferson Westside neighborhoods. They have kind of we're a neighborhood that is love, we're not hate. And it was just like a really good sign, really nice sign. So I thought Whitaker needs something along the same lines to show that, Whitaker's strong, we're in here, we're making it through it the best we can in this pandemic. But because this is a beautiful place with really talented artists, I thought we needed something a little more geared towards individuality and allow for creativity. So I attempted to get the city to fund something. The city will not be funding it. Ian was brilliant and said, let's make it a COVID vaccine incentive. Let's get some artists involved. So WCAT has a call for artists to create I'm vaccinated, basically signs that people can put in their yard to just show their neighbors, hey, I decided to get the vaccine, and that gives someone an opportunity to have a conversation with a trusted other on possibly on making that choice, that somebody that they like or respect made.
Hey, thanks so much, Angie. And the last two pieces are actually things that I'm hoping that Dan and Andrew can talk about more, because we've got the transportation committee coming up next. But basically, what if we used art as a way to improve vaccine confidence and public health by slowing down intersections? So the mural on the bottom left is at Olive and 26. So it's not in the Whitaker, but it is in Eugene, where the community came together and created a mural. And there's a little bit of data that shows that it slows traffic. And then I love this crosswalk mural on the right-hand side. In my mind, I imagine every crosswalk in the Whitaker being as colorful as this, where we're using money to support artists in the Whitaker and just kind of making it weird and fun. So I wanted to open it up to board members, members of the public. If y'all have any questions for Susan or Ellen about the Whitaker Community Art Team. And while you're thinking about questions, I'm actually going to grab the link for the call for artists and put that in the chat so y'all can share it on Facebook and with any artists Delinia?
Thank you.
Is there a way that the community itself or do you guys get money or funding from anyone else, or do I don't know, any kind of fundraising? And if so, how successful is it for you?
It's been successful in the past. Ellen, did you come and hang?
I worked at the event that was at Oakshire.
Yeah, totally. Do you want to talk a little bit about, because we raised over $1,000 that night.
Yeah, that was a beautiful experience. So we had a silent auction and we had live art with Kari and I don't remember the other person's name. And there was music, and we had pieces of the previous free wall that people could bid on or purchase. And it was a great community event. Staffed by members of the WCAT.
Thank you.
And over the course of, since 2014, I'm just pulling up the WCAT budget right now. WCAT's brought in $16,000 to the Whitaker Community Council. So, and it's remember, people way before, most of the board got involved. So yeah, it's been a labor of love, bringing in a lot of funding, but I love the idea of creating a more vibrant and equitable arts community in the Whitaker by paying artists. So
yes.
Yeah, that to me is where I get my warm and fuzzies. And it's just, yeah, so it's a real special thing to make sure that artists can get compensated for their work.
I can't remember the name of, it's like a little label where you could scan your phone, but have you guys thought about making flyers that the businesses could put up that say, hey, if you want to donate to the Whitaker Art Team, put your phone up here and they can get the information?
Like a QR code?
QR code, yeah. So this way, businesses can support you in a way where yeah, we haven't explored it just yet, but yeah, totally game for that idea.
And then Jen, it looks like you have the last question, comment before we move on to Dan and Andrew.
Okay, I like all the artwork. I like the slow down thing. And I also like the crosswalks. And I wonder how difficult it would be to get, do you have to have permits or to stop traffic in a certain, area to complete that?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, and I think Andrew and Dan are going to have some feedback on that too, because yeah, that's where you get the blend between transportation and art. So yeah, I think that's a little above my pay grade, but hopefully Dan and Andrew can talk a little bit more about that and their perspective when we talk about the transportation committee.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate seeing something visually that's aesthetically pleasing, and it gives me a mark to turn. Oh yeah, that's where I want to turn. So anyway, I like that idea. What was the turn left? Why was it turn left?
It just said look left. Like
Look left. Why was that?
Oh, because I think that's where traffic was coming, like when you're crossing.
A one-way street?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Totally. Well, with that, I just wanted to say thanks so much to Ellen and to Susan for joining us tonight. Y'all rock, and it's just like such a pleasure to see you every Monday, and really looking forward to keeping the projects going and seeing what else we can accomplish over the next couple of months. So thanks to y'all so much, and feel free to stay on for the Transportation Committee, which is up next. And with that, I will pass it on to Dan and Andrew to talk about the work that they've been doing on the Transportation Committee.
Sure, I don't know how you want to split it up, Dan, but I'm happy to start. And if you want to fill in any details, you're welcome to jump in at any time, if that works for you. So Dan, Claire, and I expressed interest in creating a kind of transportation committee for the Whiteaker. I know a lot of my neighbors talk about people speeding on our street, and I have heard some of you say that speeding and parking and things like that are issues on your streets as well. And Ian and I watched someone drive over his traffic diverter. So we all know these are things in the neighborhood, and I think most neighborhoods have these kinds of issues. So a little bit about me, I work as a transportation planner professionally. So it's definitely an interest of mine. I'm also on the active transportation committee for the city of Eugene. So it's something I do personally and professionally, really interested in. Basically, I think if you looked at our statement of purpose, we drafted a statement of purpose, and that's kind of the first thing you have to do in the Whiteaker bylaws if you want to create a committee. And the kind of where we're coming from is we want to act kind of as a conduit and maybe provide some recommendations to the Whiteaker Community Council around certain issues. Claire works with Better Eugene Springfield Transportation, so she's also involved in active transportation professionally. And basically our statement of purpose says that we want to provide recommendations, solicit input from membership on issues you're having and things that you care about, and then empower you all to help engage with the city and make our neighborhood a better place to move around, but also, to stop some of the bad moving around behaviors that we see as well. So our criteria for membership, we're just sticking with kind of what's recommended in the Whiteaker Community Council bylaws, which is anyone on the board can join the group, and members that are not on the board but are members of the Whiteaker Community Council can be appointed by a vote of the board. Our requirements would be similar to WCC. They would be open to any WCC member, and we would hold those on a monthly or ad hoc basis. If something comes up, if there's like a proposal from the city, we may need to meet more than monthly, but monthly is probably sufficient. And we're not looking to, I think, create a lot of authority here. So our authority, we are seeking to basically just engage in projects that collect input from people, and projects that would encourage you all to participate in city processes and to engage with the city. But also, if the board takes a position on an issue, let's say there's like a streetery permit or something that would require closure of a street, or for instance, those paintings, if the board took a position on an issue, then we would be empowered to work with city officials, with that position. So that's kind of the gist of the committee. Some of the things we talked about getting started with, I don't have our project list up, but we want to create some kind of way for people in the neighborhood to kind of crowdsource what kind of issues they're having and start to think about how we can get the city to address those. We talked about those street paintings, which encourage safety and slower driving, but also beautify the neighborhood. Dan, I don't know if you can help me out with what else we talked about at our kind of founding meeting.
Yeah, definitely I can. We had talked about issues such as traffic calming, diverting traffic, which would be, of course, important if there was going to be a streetery on Van Buren Street outside of the Meiji, for instance. Ways to promote carless traffic, other traffic diversion tactics like the, what were those called? The vertical pillars that would slow or divert traffic from certain areas. Ways to encourage people to not use streets, for instance, like Monroe or even First Street as local throughways that were going to be like freeways locally, just ways to keep things, the blood pressure low in the neighborhood. Yeah, and of course, every street art project would factor in hugely with those to divert people's eyes to things that would slow them down and make them enjoy the neighborhood and understand that there are people living here. I live on West 3rd, right around the corner from the Meiji, and parking and traffic and the speed of motorists is always a giant issue. So that's where I would hope to always factor in the 20 is plenty neighborhood thing. So anything else, Andrew?
Yeah, we talked about seeing if there was interest in the Van Buren between Blair and 3rd, basically the little cutoff where Meiji and Slice are. Seeing if we can get a streetery in there, if that's something that's interesting to the community, because there's no reason people can drive to there and create a lot more space for us to eat delicious food and hang out. So that's the other project we talked about trying to get off the ground.
So one of the other things that I've found going through all of the old WCC and all the notes that I've been going through is that there were, I don't know exactly how to describe them, but they would be like bump outs in curbs and in pedestrian pathways that would slow people down. And to me, that's just huge. Anything to get the traffic to calm and slow and divert, even to the point of diverting them out of our neighborhood. I mean, the real throughways would be 6th and 7th, would be Washington and Jefferson, would be Chambers. I don't know if they're all prepared to deal with any diversion of that, but Blair Boulevard, for instance, is a giant throughway of people that are going to go down Van Buren through the prospective streetery. And they're all just shortcuts. And so to encourage people to not have those things be shortcuts, what I think would be a huge thing for us to tackle.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dan and Andrew. Claire, unfortunately, couldn't make it tonight, but I know that she's been enthusiastically with y'all on this. Really excited to hear how we can support you. And we have the first comment from Jen, and then Thea, you're up next.
Yes, I'm wondering how all this is going to fare, with the idea of slowing down traffic on First Street, which is really intense. And with the quiet zone that's supposed to be coming back, and they're supposedly going to be putting in the quads which are going to block traffic down Van Buren and Monroe and so forth, all the way to Jefferson Street. That's just going to make it a bigger speedway in the way I'm seeing it. Because now they don't have to worry about cars trying to turn left from North Polk or North Grand or any of the smaller streets. I don't know how that's going to all work together and come out. That's just one. Then I can on my street, North Polk, I have Coach, and Coach rents out that space to Hot Belly, and those trucks are nonstop all day long. And this morning was rather intense. There was a truck jam you couldn't leave the house, which scared me, because if there was an emergency, I don't know what I'd do. And there's things of that. And North Grand gets a little different type of trafficking that goes on. But on North Polk, it's becoming speedway. And we do have children. And it's, I know, so those are my two. I know I have more. I would like to see a flashing light at where the bus stop is on North Polk, so that people can get across. And that left turn from there is pretty frightening. And it has also, North Grand has that issue as well. And people who are older have a hard time crossing the street to get to the bus, one little stop. That's all. Can you fix that, please, Andrew and Dan? Thank you.
We can try if you vote to make us an official committee. We can certainly try.
I can sense a motion brewing, but we have Thea up next, and then Delinea, you're on deck. And thanks so much for sharing those suggestions, Jen. We've already set up an initial meeting for Andrew, Dan, and Claire to meet with the project manager of the Railroad Quiet Zone before they come in November and present to the general meeting. So Thea. You're still muted, Thea.
I would like to motion to make them an official committee. And I also will share with whoever would like it. I've still been in contact, Ian, believe it or not, with the city about trying to get that section closed down, even temporary, and using COVID as a reason, because people cannot walk down the street between Meiji and Slice. It's not COVID safe right now. And so I have put that back out there. And the last thing they said was, we still need to check with the fire trucks and the bus. So Andrew, you may know a little bit about that, but the bus routes. And I said, well, the bus doesn't go down there and the fire trucks don't go down that way either. So that's a poor excuse. And can you get back to me? And that was on my list this week. So I'll turn it over to you guys. How do you like that?
All right, bam, bam, back and forth. Delinea.
Yeah, I would just like to second Thea's motion and create the committee. Yeah, I love the idea. I have the same problem going down First. It's like a raceway on First Avenue. These people are only using they're not using our businesses. They're not using anything. They're just using us as a shortcut. And the other day I was leaving my house, going to Jen's house, and, I was on Grand trying to even make a right, and this truck almost plowed into me because he was like speeding down, a 30 mile an hour. It was ridiculous. So yeah, I second that motion twice.
Great. Dan, go ahead.
Sure. So according to what I've learned going through all the Whiteaker documents, Blair Boulevard used to actually connect to a version of Railroad Boulevard. And this is before the Chambers Bridge was even there, where it was mostly local neighborhoods. There was no Chambers Street. I'd have to show you the maps, or maybe you can come see them. But Blair Boulevard connected to what is now Railroad. And there was a street crossing across the railroad tracks. There was still a spur line like there is now. that kind of hugs closely to West First Avenue, but you would have to cross there. Right now, what I would see as the biggest problem, making a streetery, for instance, on Van Buren, is that it is a shortcut to First. And the other shortcuts to First, of course, are Washington and Jefferson, and the people that are looking to avoid 6th and 7th traffic before they turn right onto what is now Chambers and the Chambers connector. It's a huge undertaking to try to get traffic out of our neighborhood because of what it has become in the last 30, 40 years. I think it was the late 70s where the Chambers connector was built. I don't have the year in my brain right now, but it wasn't always there. There's a historical precedent, minus the population, maybe 100,000 people here now compared to then. But that's what it would take, possibly would be going to a grandfather kind of a thing.
Yeah, thanks for that input, Dan, and super important historical context. I feel like that's part of the reason we need to pay extra special attention to the documents that are in there, because this is not a new problem. And I'm sure past boards have gone deep into potential solutions. And so I wanted to respect Thea's motion and Delinia's second to officially anoint the Transportation Committee as such. And so if all those who are in favor could raise their hands or say aye, please. Great. And we got 2 hands from Jen. Love that. So yeah, that's official. Andrew, Dan, and Claire, who's absent, there's that meeting set up with folks for the Railroad Quiet Zone. For the streetery, all that we need to do is get a yes from Izakaya Meiji and a yes from Slice Pizzeria, and we're good to go. So if y'all want to get the yes in writing or have them respond to an email, you can reach out to Doriandra, and she's got the contact info for Ed Russo, the business outreach person. We got a yes from them last year during the height of the pandemic, but unfortunately the owner of Grit, who's no longer there, of course, passed, right? So all we need to do is get a yes from Izakaya Meiji as well as Slice, and then we'd be ready to move to the next part of the streetery. Sweet. Well, thanks for that. That's super exciting. And yeah, Jen apparently has been first on the scene with her laundry list of to-dos. So yeah, as soon as you fix all traffic in the Whiteaker, I'm sure other people are going to have some honey can do requests for the Transportation Committee. I wanted to pass it on to Jen next to talk about the charter revision process. Hats off to Jen. It's a real thankless task to be able to go through the years of feedback that's been happening to the Whiteaker Community Council Charter, but it's the foundational document of the WCC, and it's going to help guide us to the next 50 years, right? Just like the past 50 years have been guided by the charter from 1974. So Jen, I wanted to pass it on to you next, and to use the time as you'd like to give an update, talk about how you want feedback from us, and have a quick conversation about where we go from here.
So thank you. So you guys, you all know that I'm not a technological person. Okay, and if you don't, I'm letting you know now. This is not what I do. I push metal. I don't know how to do technology, but I have really dug in and learned what I can. And so today, before the meeting, I sent out an email to everyone that included the revision that I'm working on in 2021, and versus the current charter that's at the website with the city, the model guidelines, and the compliance guidelines for a 501c3, and so that you can use them to cross-reference, so you can see where we were and where we are coming to, and possibly the future. And I'm trying to learn how to do what Ian calls track changes. And I think it's also called editing. But I got a really good feedback from both Cordona. I can't even remember your first name. I'm tired. Cordona. When I say her name, Delenia Cordona, I think of the movie Princess Bride. My name is Eli, or what's his name? You know what, that guy? Mendoza.
You killed my father, prepare to die.
No. Yes. Okay, so anyway, and Angie gave me some, and so did Claire. And that's why, and I apologize for being a little confusing, because I am challenged by the technology, but I did end up sending the information so you can use as a guide to see how to work it and how to decide how the past has been and how we are looking at these things these days. And I do put in there, and it's important to me, for all of us, that COVID's influence has played a part, as well as technology. So if you have any suggestions as to if anybody wants to help me, that's what I'm looking for. Somebody to show me how to use that track changes. Somehow I got it, thanks to Delenia, onto Google Docs, to Google Drive, and I'm learning all this Google stuff, and it's driving me wild. But I need someone to show me how to use the editing, so that, and I'm not sure if I don't know if I can handle 11 people giving me comments. And that's a concern for me. So I'm asking for assistance. And if you have any questions that I can answer, I'll be glad to try to answer them. So fire away.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for Jen? We've got the first from Thea. Thea, go right on ahead.
Jen, I will be happy to help you learn how to use the Google
I love you.
and the editing, okay? It'll be next week sometime though. Okay, I'll reach out to you.
Okay, thank you.
That's awesome. That's a coup. Yeah, I just wanted to say again, thanks, Jen. Yeah, going through the charter is a laborious process, particularly because there's so many different iterations of the charter that you've had to look through. Something that would be really helpful for me is having track changes or your suggested edits on the current version of the charter from 2006. I'm working on creating my suggested edits, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how all of our contributions come together. And yeah, I think that it's going to be a bear, right? To be able to integrate everyone's comments in, and eventually we're going to need to come together as a board and kind of go through suggestion by suggestion together, maybe during a special meeting for like an hour, and just say, hey, this suggestion here, yes, no, move on, and we'll just go piece by piece. I imagine some of them won't be controversial, while others we may need more time to talk about them. I sent you a draft timeline to both you and Gail. Now that we have the funding for the attorney, I'd love to create multiple opportunities for the attorney to be able to review it, to give suggestions to us, because they're going to have some ideas of their own as well. And then kind of have the next couple of months be kind of like a call and response, right? The attorneys chipping in, individual board members are getting to you. So that way you don't have to do 11 different people at once, right? You might get feedback from Angie and Claire, and then maybe a week or two later you get some from Andrew and me, and then a week or two after that you get some from Thea and Gail.
Oh, that sounds good. Okay. Also, I really don't know how to give a timetable, but the one that you sent me sounds more reasonable. I think I was ambitious with mine, and I get it. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions? Did you get my email? I know you don't have time to read it, but did anyone look? I think Delenia did.
I did. I looked at it. There's just a little bit of, from what I'm looking at, it's mostly language that we have to clean up a little bit.
Yes.
But well, since I was involved in it, you already know we have a couple of things, line items that we should just let the board also break
Yeah.
that tie.
Yeah, yes. And also I mean, I already saw some changes that I need to make and typos and all that stuff, but I didn't dare do it and then send it out all over again. So it's hard to not correct what looks to me that needs to be corrected. But Angie, I don't know if I should answer that question about work, about the 2-year term, or not at this point. But I'd like to see how that comes up. Like if it's a big issue, then that's something that should be addressed. And I'm just going to go with the weight of the issues. And what would be, if any, Delania, what do you think, or Ian, a good time frame before I start getting my 2 people at a time? Is that what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I think that once you, Gail, and I agree on a timeline that makes sense to the 3 of us, I think that's when you would take into consideration however you wanted to do it, just everyone's comments, not trying to do all of them at once, but putting them in piece by piece. So maybe when you look at the timeline too, you could look at how long it would take you, like if you did a week at a time to integrate people's comments in, then 12 of us minus you, that's 11. So it would take you 11 weeks unless you've already integrated in Teresa's comments as well, because I know that they were going to take a look at it. So yeah, it might take you just like 3 months based on the 11 people once per week it'll take to integrate folks' comments in. So yeah, once you look at the timeline and it makes sense to you, we can walk and chew gum at the same time and just starting to get people's feedback in. And eventually, once we have the attorney on board, we can start kind of sending the drafts off to them and have them review it and give some initial thoughts and impressions as well.
Okay, so this is what, September? So it takes about 3 months, you're thinking? So we're talking what, the end of the year? I don't think, we don't meet in December, do we?
We do.
We do? When is it that we don't meet? November?
In August.
Oh, I thought, okay, okay. All right, so by the end of the year, maybe we can come together and pass a vote. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, and so I'll just share with everyone, it's 9 o'clock right now. I'll just kind of share, this is the timeline that I sent to Jen. So September 15th, this is where we're at right now. We're discussing the working draft, the timeline, and then September through October, initial review and feedback of the charter by the attorney. So we voted on that tonight. October 13th, so that's our next board meeting. So that's when I thought we could have our feedback in and have an initial discussion of proposed changes. And that's when it would be due to Jen. So all of us would need to send our changes to Jen. And then October through November, we'd have a chance to have the charter reviewed again by the attorney. In November, we would have reviewing all the proposed charter changes because we've had a chance to review what the attorney has twice. Then we do a final review by the attorney sometime between November and January. And then we have a review in January, and either a final review or a vote between January and February. So it gives us kind of like 3 chances to send to the attorney and 3 chances for us to, as board members, to go through this before we send it off to the city, human rights and neighborhood involvement, before we kind of promote it to folks. But this is just a draft. So yeah, I would just say that once you have another chance to look at that and think about how long it would take you, to me, if we're moving slow and giving ourselves lots of space, I think we could do it early next year. Do a vote by the board.
Okay, I think that sounds reasonable.
Cool.
So I will get together with you and Gail. We'll have a Zoom meeting.
I'll just send you the timeline again if you want to take a look at that. And
no, as far as like groups of what people, or should I just figure that out?
Yeah, I just encourage you to like however you want to kind of bring in people's changes
Okay,
one by one.
okay, because I need to meet with Thea next week to learn how to do that.
Totally. Cool.
Other than that, it's been quite interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, thanks so much for doing the unglamorous work of making sure that things are up to date. And yeah, it's so important, and I'm really excited to have the attorney's eyes on this. And for folks, if you can, before our next meeting in October, please send your suggested changes to Jen so that she can find the way that she wants you to be able to put this in for suggestions. With that, we're at 9:03, so we're a little bit over. Does anyone else have some final thoughts for Jen before we do the agenda review for October, November, and December?
I'll just say that I will be emailing whoever, how I'm going to work the format and how I'm going to do the whole platform.
Yep.
Probably it'll take me about a week and a half.
Cool. Yeah. And that makes sense because we're going to have a month to email you back our changes.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. I just wanted to quickly say that October, the general meeting, we're going to have Cheryl from the Eugene Mission come. Gail and I are going to work on the agenda for when we're going to have Cheryl come present. For November, we're going to have the folks from the Whiteaker Quiet Zone do a presentation and a question and answer. Kate Marwitz is the principal engineer for the city of Eugene. Jordan Vesper, I don't know what their position is, but they're going to be with us as well. I imagine that's going to be a pretty well-attended meeting. And I'm hoping during the November meeting, we can talk about the elections in April to get people jazzed about joining the board if they're interested in it. And then the December meeting, I think it's going to be our most well-attended meeting. We're going to have the folks, everyone who's involved in the demobilization of Washington Jefferson Park. So that's Laura Hammond, she's the community relations director. Melinda McLaughlin, that's the Eugene Police Department public information officer. Brian Richardson, who's with Public Works, and then Kelly Shadwick, who's the Parks and Open Spaces manager. So they're going to be talking about the safe sleep sites and what the plan is for transitioning people from Washington Jefferson to the safe sleep sites that they're standing up around the city. Delinia?
Are they communicating with the people who are staying there about our meeting and that they should come or anything like that?
No, but we should definitely do that. We should create an opportunity for folks at Washington Jefferson to participate. And that's a great idea, Delinia. Thanks for bringing that up. So with that, does anyone else have any kind of final thoughts before we close? It was great to see everyone tonight. Wish we could meet in person sometime, but hopefully things calm down and we're able to do that soon. Thanks so much. And I will make sure to add Surge and the ad hoc committee for police policy to the next agenda during the general meeting per Angie's note. Thanks so much, everyone. And I'll upload this to YouTube later tonight. Have a great one. Have a great night.